a quorum, so I'll call the meeting to order at 3:02 p.m. I'll ask if there are any additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda. Seeing no one raising their hand, we'll accept the agenda. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Yep. Any questions from those? Jay, I wanted to ask if you have already joined the PPORA or what the status was there.
Yeah, I have joined the PPORA. I've attended 2 meetings. There was one yesterday. I am really starting off on the fly on the wall kind of level. Some of the existing business was in a little different direction than our immediate concerns in Green Mountain Falls.
Yeah. Hey Jay, hold that thought. Let me have you bring that up in reports and
all right,
talk
good.
when we get to reports. It was just a question that I had on the minutes, and then I'll bring up the tree lighting when we get to report section also for myself. And I think Don is going to present about Catamount Trail in reports. So is there a motion to accept the meeting minutes, Jay?
I will so move. We should. Come on, Nancy, do you accept your own minutes?
Yeah, I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the minutes are approved. I skipped over 3 minutes for any speaker who was not on the agenda. Is there anyone present?
We have a couple of attendees in the audience. I don't know, Shelley, Mark, are you speaking? They're just observing.
They are in for a raucous, fun meeting.
We always have raucous, fun meetings.
We do.
Okay.
Do. The truth. So I'm going to move on to old business. And topic 5A is wayfinding and parking signage update. Hopefully you have all seen that 3 of our town signs have been returned, restored in quite good condition. I think they did a great job hand painting those and shoring up the structures. I think we have 3 more left for them to do. And honestly, I don't know if those have been removed yet or not, but if they haven't, that is work to be done right away, because I know we want to close out that project this year. Are there any comments on those or that project?
I think the signs look awesome. They're very, very nice. It sort of spoofs up our town a lot. Did we ever hear anything about the parking? We did the whole session on the parking. I mean, did that sort of, I don't know if we're even going that direction anymore.
Nancy, I'm going to take full responsibility for letting that fall off of my plate. In fact, I forgot completely about it till you just brought it up. So I'm going to go ahead and I still have the notes from that work session. I will have the drafts person draft that signage, and then let's look at it again once it's designed and see what kind of recommendation we want to make. I think parking was much easier this year.
Yeah.
And so much of that is attributed to what your group is doing with the Trails Ambassadors. But there are other days of the week, and I think those are just tools that the Trails Ambassadors can use. And I know that I frequently notice people still parallel parked over in front of the tennis courts, which drives me nuts. But I think part of that parking plan was kicking over to Public Works, putting in the curb stops, which also hasn't done. So we've got those two things that I can think of sort of left to accomplish along with those town signs. So
Well, and I also think off season, when ambassadors aren't down there, we're having some issues with hiker parking up on Hondo also. And I think if we get those consistent no parking signs with the ordinance with some teeth to them, I think that would help, just look a little bit more official and give Sergeant Marshall Goings more ability to enforce that.
Yeah, I've seen modification. A couple of people have modified the private no parking signs along Hondo, just adding bits to it to try to make it a little more official looking. But it would be important to get that going.
I'll have those drafted up for our next meeting for sure.
Thank you.
Bet. The Gazebo Island paver project. If memory serves, Catherine was going to report back on that. She's not here today. I'm going to just put on my list of things to do to check with Reverend Darlene and Jeff Chapman to find out who recently did the pavers at the church. It could be the same person that did the pavers at the park, or it could be a person who replaces that. So I'll get that information, and hopefully Catherine will be at our next meeting and we can continue talking about that, because we do have some public requests for those pavers outstanding.
Yeah, I think there's about 10 or 12 people that have inquired about putting pavers on Gazebo Island. And we're just trying to figure out how they did it before and restart the program.
Perfect. If it works at all like the way the Church in the Wildwood did their paver program for their courtyard, it's quite simple, and it would be really nice to include an application for a paver with wedding permits.
Oh,
But
there you go.
and I know that we're going to talk a little bit more about Gazebo Park and the bridge later, so we'll keep that in mind. CDBG Phase 1 concrete tent. I know that the town manager's going to be joining us at 3:30 or 3:40, and specifically wanted to have some discussion about this. Would you guys be okay if we move this down the agenda in hopes that she can join this conversation?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Yeah, do that.
Okay, I'm going to move that down, and basically it could be in reports. I basically considered her email to the PRT as her report in case she weren't able to attend. So we'll discuss all those things, and we're going to skip everything else in old business basically for her report. So it's not going to take us long to get there. So that gets us through all the old business. New business is this CDBG. All of these acronyms get really confusing, and I don't know how the mayor or the town manager or anyone else keeps up with all of these, but I'm glad that they do. So our topic for new business is continuation of the Phase 1 work that's happening now with the fishing pier. I know that this group expressed a lot of interest in having some some thought be put into phase one, and it didn't happen because we got to the table a little late for whatever reason. But here we are, soon ready to go into phase two of the project, or at least be applying for the grants to do so. Looking for Becky's email here. So if we go to, do you all have the email from Becky in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. So if we go bottom of the first page, phase two of the Gazebo Lake project, she's telling us that they are announcing the grant in January. Sometime in February, those grant applications are due. And so she would like the PRT to input on things that we could do at Gazebo Park that would be beneficial. She also noted that in the SURSA audit, there needs to be some work on the bridge and handrail to Gazebo Island, that the playground equipment is in poor condition and we need upgrades to the picnic tables and benches. So all things for us to consider in our recommendation. Without Ron here, we can just volunteer him for this whole thing.
Absolutely. That'll fix it.
Jay knows how that feels.
Yes. You know, so this seems to me like a project that this is why we signed up to be part of PRT, or at least I did. And I think you guys feel the same. So this, I sort of envision this, and we can go around the table, but I'd like everyone to take a look at Gazebo Lake Park, and let's schedule a work session and sort of sit down and roll up our sleeves and everybody give their recommendations, and let's form that into a list of what are our priorities, and try to get those into the grant application or the recommendation to the board.
So do we know what like the money limit is, the monetary? I mean, because we can make a list a mile long, but I mean, we're going to have to figure out what would fit into the amount of money we'd be getting also.
But perhaps when the town manager joins us later, we can ask that question. I would say that it never hurts us to dream big, though, because if we're keeping a list of all those things, those roll into our Parks Master Plan. You know, the town did not apply for that grant in this application cycle. We were turned down in the last application cycle. And in lieu of applying for it again, Becky applied for, or the town manager applied for the grant to do the pool research. And so we'll pick up applications again for the Parks Master Plan in the next cycle, which I believe also happens in February. A weakness, I think, in that application that we submitted for the Parks Master Plan was that we talked about how good things are, but we didn't really communicate where our weaknesses were and why we really need things like restrooms and improvements that we asked for in that grant. So this next work session that I'm calling for, if you all agree for the Gazebo Lake Park Phase 2, anything that won't fit in there just rolls into our master plan, if that makes sense. So if we'd like to, does that how it, Dawn, what do you think about proceeding like that?
I think that's a logical way to proceed.
Nancy?
Yeah, I agree. So then the CDBG grant will be looking at gazebo park only. Is it ADA? Are we looking ADA since ADA is what the phase one was also?
Well, the town manager has suggested that that we look at the bridge and handrail, the playground equipment, picnic tables and benches, and I think a furtherance of the ADA compliant walkway through the park seems like a logical thing to at least be talking about.
Yeah. And then, like you said, anything that really doesn't get adopted into that grant, hopefully we'll get the next go around of the GOCO concept grant, be able to work on our master plan. Because I am a little disappointed we didn't resubmit in November, just for the simple fact is that we have been talking about this master plan for almost a year, and we've been putting so many things shoved into that master plan. It just feels like we're just kicking it down the road. And I'm glad we're involved in the phase two where we can give some love to Gazebo Island, because our poor little gazebo is needing some, then the bridge is needing a lot of love. But I'm really sort of sad that we didn't resubmit the GOCO, because then we would have just been a step closer to getting to our master plan. So.
I agree. And I think you bring up a great point. I'm going to reiterate what you just said, is that when we kick things to another potential project that we're applying for, some important things can get lost. We all know that the roof on the gazebo is in poor condition, and I do have a contractor making a recommendation whether we're at a paint repair or if we're into roof tile replacements yet. So we are looking at that, but if things like that get pushed into a continuing hold in a grant cycle, we can start to lose steam and progress and lose some infrastructure. So I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying, Nancy, and procedurally, I think we need to think about, do we add those things to do we start adding things to goals? Do we, how do we keep things like that from falling off grid?
Yeah, we need some kind of running report. Some kind, because I'm personally keeping a list, and yes, you can go back and look at all the old minutes and, sort of glean from those minutes is the things that we were saying we're going to put in the master plan. But we need something that's in front of us all the time, and how that can be done, I'm not sure, but just having it invisible makes a huge difference versus, we talk about it in one meeting and then we say that's going to go in the master plan. And then the next meeting, it's not on the agenda anymore. And so, it does, like you said, it gets lost in those, in the cracks. And so we need to be really mindful that we're not just pushing things off like that and then forgetting about them.
Jesse?
Yes.
I remember Ron explaining the process of how his company goes through a project such as that, and basically looking at all the assets that are in the site, assessing them as their condition, making recommendations for improvements. Certainly, if we made an asset inventory of Gazebo Park and then assessed each one of those assets as to its repair status, that would be a big start, because we don't even know. I mean, I couldn't sit here and tell you what every asset in that park was, and I surely couldn't tell you what the condition is. However, on that note, I did have an opportunity to inspect that bridge with the water being down, and it does have some serious problems. Structurally, the piers are settling. I'm going to say that without having to replace the piers, I think that they can be adjusted to support the bridge without having to pour new ones. The timber, it's gone so long without any kind of coating. Much of that timber is going to have to be just replaced. And so that's my assessment on it.
That's great. When we are talking about when we're talking about that, I was going to ask if you and Ron would do a precursory inspection of the bridge and the assets there. And I know this is a great time to do it when the water's not in the lake. And as we're talking about this project list, I sort of remember from when Dick Bratton was on Planning Commission, there was a capital projects list that he frequently referenced, which sounds like what we're talking about. So why don't we dedicate our next work session to to Gazebo Lake Park, to creating this Parks Improvement Master List. And really that's the beginning. It's more work towards the Parks Master Plan.
I think that's a good start.
Okay. I like that too.
Yeah, as we do that, we should probably assign a priority to each individual entry, so that when the inevitably there's going to be a capital crunch or a limit or a stage or doling out of monies, and we'd want that to be in front of people to make the call on how they would get worked out. The piers that Don is referring to are clearly going to be one of your number one priorities, and work from there.
I see a spreadsheet in your future, Jesse.
I feel it coming. That's okay. I like them. We can do that. All right. So do we want to set a date for that next work session?
Sure.
I need to get some clarity from the town manager between now and then, if the public is included in a work session, or if we are free as an advisory group to just go out and sit in the park and do our work. Because I feel like a field trip around looking at assets is needed. I will be back. I will be in Green Mountain Falls. I could do the 28th or the 29th or the 30th.
Well, why don't we stick with Wednesday, since that's sort of our day, supposed to be our day. So
Today, Wednesday.
Okay.
So I think the 30th would work.
Okay. I'll be leaving town. I'll be out of town on the 1st, but I can do the 30th.
Why don't we do early? That way we got more sun and hopefully warmth. You guys, can we do 1 o'clock?
I can, yes.
I'd be fine with that.
Okay. Do we have any idea what Ron's schedule is? Let's schedule it for, we don't need a motion or anything like that because we're not taking action, but we will have a work session on Wednesday, November the 30th at 1 p.m. meeting at the farm stand.
Perfect.
Jesse, is there any way we can get some information on the infrastructure of the park, i.e. sprinkler systems, power lines, and that that thing, because that would be helpful.
The only way that I know to get information about the irrigation system would be to have someone ask Tom Hughes, because he installed it and has maintained it. He's easy to find right now because he's doing the lake repairs. So if you wanted to try to grab that from him, Don, that would probably be the way to get that information the quickest.
How would you feel about him attending a meeting?
I think that's makes sense. Certainly, we could give him a choice to give us the layout of the irrigation system, or to attend the meeting. What would be nice, ultimately, I don't know if it's true. I feel like Public Works probably has lost track of what irrigation systems are where. I know that we've got one at Pool Park. I know that we've got one at Flagpole Park. But they haven't been on in so many years. And that's on our goals list, to make sure that we're getting those backflow preventers put in. But I think if we could ask Tom Hughes to present a document that could go into town record, with his knowledge of what we got, it's a good place to start.
I think that's a great idea.
Don, thanks so much for volunteering to get that ball rolling.
To do what?
Nancy will explain.
You're welcome.
No, that's a great start. That's a good idea. Power lines, I don't know, maybe we look at that and come up with some specific questions, and then we'll figure out who to bug at CSU about it.
I know they discovered some uncharted utilities. Tom did, or maybe it was the
Stilling Basin.
Stilling Basin contractor. But yeah, so we need to get what we can.
And maybe we can have all 6 lanterns on the bridge working.
No.
We can't ever?
Never.
Oh, okay.
Because I thought there were 8.
Oh, are there 8? All I ever see is 3.
I think your point is taken.
Okay. What's the active question about CSU's involvement there, in terms of power lines crossing behind Gazebo Park, or?
As I understand it, these were utility lines that were running parallel with Ute Pass Road, not back by Fountain Creek.
Okay. So they're buried underneath Ute Pass Road?
In the right of way, on the right of way.
Yeah. That sounds like something we could do, just call a
Okay.
we must kind of person, you know, the 811. Is it 811 or 411 numbers?
Yes, like call for a locate.
Yeah. Maybe that's something we should just pursue to make sure we have that background and we don't miss something. Because I'm sure they've done that directly at the Stilling Basin. But if there's utilities that cross Maple Street, that would be important to know as we go through things. I'd say I'd allow myself to get voluntold into something, but I'd ask, should we be doing that, or should we ask Public Works?
Todd is mouthing to me the town should do that.
Okay, that's why I was asked, that's why I wanted to make sure. I don't want to step out
Do what exactly?
territory.
I mean, everything?
Get the locate.
Oh, the locate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Stick with us.
Yeah, getting the locate done so that we know what's going on.
There
Yeah.
was a locate for
Yeah.
that right away. It just, they didn't identify two other lines that were running with the other things.
Really? So just two mystery lines?
Conduit. Yeah, two conduits. Huh? Yeah. By Fountain Creek. Okay, that's new information for me, so.
It's a mountain town and they're not going to locate everything. I mean, there's things buried in the ground that 120, 30 years ago was put there. So we're still finding, but we haven't found any gold yet. No gold.
Yeah, I bet you find some geese if you dig enough.
Did you find a parking meter?
Parking kiosk.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That was a zinger.
It was, I'm sorry.
No, it was great. I loved it.
I'm doing a poor job of following the agenda today, but I'm
Well, I
trying.
think the rest of it, we're just waiting for Becky,
I think so, but I'm gonna,
or you could do reports.
yeah, we'll go to
Catamount.
reports. So Jay, you can tell us about PPORA.
Okay. I don't have a lot to say. It's a very amorphous organization, first off. Along with being the alphabet soup, there's a spin-off alphabet, OP, let's see, Outdoor Pikes Peak. God, I've lost that acronym. There's another four-digit acronym that's been spun off to work trails, and that will be one that we get a bit involved with. OPPI, Outdoor Pikes Peak Initiative. And that will be the group that handles the integration of the new route for sections 5 and 6 of the Ring the Peak Trail, and connects on to trails in Woodland Park. They are advancing trails in Woodland Park as part of their town master plan. The organization includes several groups that are very deeply involved with that. Medicine Wheel is got a big share of that, and I'm going to be joining a group discussion with that. The OPPI team is setting up on December 13th. I will follow up with the group after that meeting, let you know what's going on. Earliest meeting was the October meeting. Spent a great deal of time talking to college students, either to bring them into volunteer roles or to talk to them about potential employment in the outdoor industries. So it's a very broad-based organization. There's almost 40 regular attendees. So you wind up with a lot of content, some of which is very interesting to us, some of which is off in another regime.
So
But,
Jay, are you in both of these organizations now?
I will be in OPPI,
Oh.
yes.
Fantastic.
I just have to remember which acronym I have to deal with that day.
You can do it, Jay. I believe in you.
So we'll probably just ask you, Jay, each time we meet during reports, if you'll let us know what you're working on there, and look for ways that there can be synergy with our projects
Yes.
in Mount Falls.
Yeah. Just to sort of put that in perspective, the key step with the Trails Initiative coming out of PPORA are the trails in Victor, Cripple Creek that will complete Ring the Peak. They consider our end of that trail done, even though it's only walking along the road along Ute Pass Avenue. They've got bigger fish to fry getting that whole vision going. After that vision gets going, things that affect us, particularly the links to the trails, which would potentially be Catamount. Mount Esther is officially one of the links. It's not in great shape. That isn't something that they've even acknowledged or recognized. So that will take a lot of energy, but that's down the road. They've kind of partitioned their jobs to finish the Ring the Peak first. So I'll keep it going and I'll make sure that I have relevant input when it's available.
I have a question. Yeah, do you think that that they lack manpower, or this is a matter of administration?
It's a matter of administration and politics. There were a number of things that were not understood when Ring the Peak Trail was identified or described as a goal. There were assumptions that they could run the trail at a relatively high altitude, close to tree line, around some of the private land, and there were real constraints there that were not recognized. Town of Victor has issues. There are issues with the mine property. There are issues with wildlife habitat on Pikes Peak. So you could call it administration, but it was lack of detail in the conception. Although there was a route proposed, it wasn't viable and needed to be reconciled to a lot of facts on the ground.
Jay, do you foresee possibly ratifying Green Mountain Falls, Chipeta Park, the Ute Pass in their commitment to support Ring the Peak?
I'd love to see it. I think that as Ring the Peak comes together, one of the things that, you'll get more traffic on the trail. And part of the reason this got going was that Bar Trail is wildly overused and is in pretty bad shape. Portals on the trail are actually quite limited. The standard approach to Ring the Peak is the two standard approaches are from Cheyenne Canyon and Bar Trail. Bar Trail, the old Ute Indian Trail, but the Ute Indian Trail jumps back into that actually jumps onto Highway 24 in its current boundaries. I was saying that Mount Esther is considered one of the portals, and the condition of that. It's not well marked. It's not maintained. It's not well maintained. It's got some vigilante maintenance. I think that Catamount Trail has beautiful potential as an avenue for Ring the Peak as it develops. That might be getting an official link there, might be a couple years down the road.
I'd like to see as Green Mountain Falls did with the American Discovery Trail, I'd like to see Green Mountain Falls support Ring the Peak Trail as well, as in whatever we can do.
Yeah, yeah. It's something that the Friends group may want to pick up, but we got to get our arms around the whole banana there.
All right. Thank you, Jay. Thanks for reporting on that and keep us posted on ways to link in. We'll also be thinking later on about rerouting part of the American Discovery Trail. So we'll talk more about that. Don, would you mind reporting about our visit to Catamount?
Jesse, do you want me to give a broad perspective? Do you want me to focus in a certain area? Because we discussed a lot of topics there.
Yeah, I think as a sort of a high level discussion of what we talked about and what our actionable items could be. Yes.
One question first, did we find out property ownership in that area?
I'm gonna try to meet with the Colorado Springs Utilities when I'm out there next. So I don't have that information yet.
Okay. Well, at least I was very excited in meeting with Jesse and Rocco, the chairman of the Friends for Youth Pass, and discussing the potential of improving the trailhead of one of the more important regional trails in the area, Catamount Trail. So I was excited to discuss possibilities, how we could do that. And with the acquisition of the old Smith property by the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, it lends a lot more possibilities as to what we can do and how we can make that trail a showcase trail, as it should be, because there are people from all over the area that travel specifically to Green Mountain Falls to hike that trail. And so part of what we would like to do initially is put the proper signage up there, identifying the trailhead. We've had many hikers reportedly walk right past the trail as they're the little small sign that's there is rather obscure. There's been a lot of deterioration of the granite wash in that area. The access to the improved part of the trail needs work. And so we discussed an area up there that is currently being used as access to Thomas and Catamount Trail as a potential landing to support maybe bench work, signage, just something that presents it as a trailhead. There are also other segments of that trail improvement discussed was actually restoring. I'm going to use the word restoring because 50 years ago, you could stand on the bridge and see a number of tiers of waterfalls. Now that 50 years later, it's mostly grown over with brush, some trees, but mostly brush. We discussed actually removing much of that to expose the namesake for our town as Green Mountain Falls. That was another exciting aspect of it. There was there was a problem that we discussed. We seemed to have a handle on it, and that was because of the brush, it was diverting the natural flow of the Catamount Creek. That was creating a spring that popped up just above the access road. And during the winter time, that would build itself up into an iceberg, which was virtually impassable unless you had, spikes. Even then, it didn't present itself as a safe place to cross, particularly next to the bridge. So that seems to have, our theory about that seems to have proven itself, in that we have stopped that spring from flooding the road. So this winter will be its true test, but that's part of the improvements that we want to see as well. Just easy access, removing, some of the overgrowth that's occurred over the years, and in doing so, preserving some of the past, having a historic bench that's made out of the old bridge plank and maybe another one. But I was really excited to contemplate improving that trail and the possibilities that we have to make it a really nice regional trail.
So I'm just going to say then, Don, that I think the vehicles, in order to get those things done, we would like to see in the agreement with the Friends of the Ute Pass Trails, that they are mitigating overgrowth on the waterfalls. I think by adding that into the contract and then it gets approved by the BOTs, everyone's aware that that's happening. And then I think it's understood that we've located a location on historic Green Mountain Falls property where it would be acceptable to put a new trailhead. So I will work with Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation to get that erected and put into place, and then we can start populating it with information. I did love your idea about talking about the historical relevance of the falls and the historical relevance of the name Catamount, and having that information on the sign. I think that those are both things that Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation would love to have us populating information about. And then sort of the Outlander, no answer yet, is following my meeting with CSU, looking for potential locations on what could be their property for benches, and continuing that discussion about where those could go. And even thinking about, it spawns the idea, are there other trailheads in town where we could have a bench in a nice little moment?
Yeah, that sounds great. Can I ask Don and Jesse, you mentioned a land ownership concern?
I think it's just specifically knowing where Colorado Springs Utilities property is, as we're on that easement that belongs to Historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation, and what we're allowed to do there.
Okay. A little curiosity. I'm as we're talking, I pulled up Teller County GIS maps, and town of Green Mountain Falls is listed as the owner of the area that has the bridge. This is Teller County's reference, and then Green Mountain Falls also is listed as the owner of a large parcel that goes probably 1,000 lateral feet up the creek. So that's something that might need to be sanity checked.
Jay, can you tell from your map, does it show Green Mountain Falls ownership as you go towards Hondo on the road? Does it incorporate where the old water tank used to sit? Just on the side of the creek? It's a flat
Okay.
space now, grassy space.
Yep. That's what I'm seeing. This may need to be checked for accuracy. The overlay between a couple of the colors is not perfect. I've talked to a Teller County assessor some time ago about other issues, and I think they may not have the best software to match those up, but the ambiguity is, covers, it looks like it's a matter of tens of feet.
If that were the case, it would be really nice to have a point of interest sign up on that plateau showing, I'm sure we could get a picture of that old wood tank with the steel stays on it,
Mhm.
point of interest sign for the
Yeah.
history.
Is that the stone foundation? The,
Yes.
yep, that looks, from what I'm seeing, looks very much like that, like that spot. I know someone who can help me with the mapping business. If I take her out to dinner a couple of times, see if I can get that rolling.
So Jay, why don't I send you the survey of the Smith property, knowing that that was just done and that pins were just set to mark those property boundaries, and you can build from that. And then if you have questions that we can ask when I have my property walk with CSU, we'll have everything ready to go for that meeting.
Right. When I did the property walk I did the Catamount Trail reconnoitering, the Forest Service person took the lead on Catamount. And CSU deferred to them, and I can see from this map that it looks like CSU has very limited property here. And I'm gonna have to dig through this in a little more detail to know that for sure.
Okay. Sounds like something we can scratch through offline and present back to the group.
Right. Yeah.
Well, and I can tell you with my trail ambassador hat on, this is happy, happy news. Because having that trailhead up on Catamount, this is something that, the past 2 years I've been saying is something that has really been needed, because the hikers they pass right by that. They don't think it's a trailhead. So I'm excited about this. And Don, if you have if your benches don't fit up there, we'll welcome them at the Welcome Center. And have a little bench area there in front of the Welcome Center too. So your benches aren't going to go unused. We'll put them somewhere.
Good.
Well, he's going to start mass production now.
There you go. Just tear up the bridge and get more wood.
I'm limited on materials.
All right. Anyone else have a report? Nancy, did you have a report?
I do not.
All right. I did receive word from the town manager that she's not going to be able to join us. So I'm going to take us through her report, which I feel fairly versed in. And we really only have one actionable item here, but we can discuss everything else. So everyone has the packet. I'm not going to read through phase 1 Gazebo Lake project because you all have it in front of you. In short, there's going to be an overage on the project because they discovered some additional outflow needs. And in thinking through another overage, there's a discussion about whether we would recommend having the concrete that's being poured dyed with an integral stain color. And the town manager would like to be able to recommend that to the Board of Trustees at the next meeting. So let's talk about whether we want to advise that or not.
I would say anything that's going to make it not look like a runway would be wonderful. Anything that make it look more natural make it look more integrated into the nature of Gazebo Park. Originally, I think that was one of Don and Ron's ideas. They also had the stamping of it too, but if we can put some, have it matching that decomposed granite color. And I am all for it. I don't know what the cost would be, but I guess, is that something we have to know before we recommend it to the board also?
Well, the town manager did share with me that the cost of that would be an additional $2,300. I'll say that I've done 3 projects in Green Mountain Falls where we use the integral stain color where it's mixed into the concrete. I much prefer that to a surface stain, which can get chipped or fade away.
Yeah, absolutely.
So been very successful on that. And in those projects, I have used the like the terracotta color, which is the same as the red
Right.
decomposed granite that we see naturally around town. So I think we're not really introducing a new color, but we are introducing an architectural detail that that we can use all the way through the park.
And the 2,300 it's not the surface, it's the integrated, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
I loved the idea of the stamped concrete, not only because of the visual interest, but because of improved safety by having something to not slide on when it's wet or frozen over. So I'm wondering, Don, in your, what you think about that, and even if it's, I'm sure we could ask for a broom finish or some kind of finish on that concrete that's going to help with that. I'm asking. I don't know that for sure, but I'm asking.
Well, certainly a broom finish would be cheaper than their normal process of finishing concrete. Stamping it would be ideal, but I think even more important that is the layout of the sidewalk. We have so much square footage that's allowed in the contract, and it was like 4 feet wide to my knowledge, and the length from parking lot to parking lot. But one would have to do the math, but it seems to me that adding a contours in the sidewalk as it travels from one parking lot to the other would not add a prohibitive amount of more material to accomplish that. And then you would have something that we could move forward on in the master plan.
In my understanding, I think the mayor's still there and he may be able to confirm this. My understanding was that in phase 1, we're only talking about a short run of sidewalk that goes from the pier to
400 feet.
handicap parking spaces.
Mm-mm.
No, it's 400 feet.
Yeah, yeah. And I have a question about the stamping. Would that interfere with the ADA accessibility at all? No, I have no idea. Okay, you researched that?
Have you seen those speed bumps that they put in the sidewalk for those people?
Okay, no.
Yeah.
Okay, I just check in.
Yeah, Jesse, my
Ron would be the proper person to ask, but in my opinion, no.
Okay.
my understanding is same as Don and Nancy's, that there's going to be 4 foot, so many feet down the backside of the lake. Basically where the gravel is now.
Well, the gravel's much wider.
Yeah,
It's like 8 feet wide.
so it'd be inside the gravel.
But we're talking about overages that'd be a good place to be over, is having some contour in that walk from one end to the other. It doesn't even have to be that great, but just get away from the straight edges.
Yeah, I would recommend you get with Becky to get with Tom to cost that out ASAP because we're trying to do this on Tuesday.
Is that a request from the mayor?
Yes.
Thank you.
Another way that we could do that if we kept the sidewalk completely straight would be to contour the edges of the ground on either side of it.
But would that affect the sprinklers heads?
It could, but that's an inexpensive.
Okay,
Right.
You could steer around the sprinkler heads. They're typically on the lakeside.
so Jesse, what you're suggesting is keeping the 4 foot wide straight and possibly curving, having some meandering with the gravel piece?
Yeah, I think because we're all used to the straight path there. I like the idea of adding contouring, but it's a new idea. So if we can achieve it by in phase 2 contouring the granite around it, which does need to be improved anyway, then we keep the project moving forward too. Just a thought.
Well, I guess what we need is a motion to present this, to have an advice memo to the board.
That's right. And so I don't know. We could talk more about contouring because I don't want to not agree with Don's idea, but I do want to keep it moving forward. I think at a minimum, we need to recommend an integral stain, including a color, and this is a great time to add a message about the finish. Don, do you feel okay about doing the contouring with the granite?
Well, it's certainly better than nothing, than just the straight sidewalk. But you know that granite is the improper material for walking surface. Okay.
I do. And I think everyone will move to the sidewalk just as soon as it gets put in.
Yeah, because they walk on the grass now.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I'm confused. What granite?
The,
The rocks?
The
Right.
Oh, okay.
it needs to be a composite material that will settle and compact. And that kind of material is all conformed. It's been filtered and screened. And so it's like marbles. It never settles in.
So like more of a tread you're thinking we need to have more of a tread like on a hiking trail?
No, it's just the material that they chose is more for landscaping purposes
Oh,
and not a
gotcha.
walking surface.
Gotcha.
If they chose a gravel, that it would be all different sizes and shapes. So after it's, first of all, they should compact it when they put it down, but then it stays. So your feet aren't moving around like it would be like in sand.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so there's no fines in the material that's there.
Only from natural erosion.
Yeah, and that's going to break up. Well, Pikes Peak granite will break up, but not that fast. Okay.
So, so there's been a color talked about, terracotta. There's been a finish talked about, the broom finish. So it sounds like we have the components of a recommendation. So I would move to recommend to the Board of Trustees that we add the terracotta integral stain color to the concrete pour, and that we request a broom finish for additional safety.
We need to probably specify to the contractor what kind of broom finish, because they're wide and varied. If we could find a texture that we want, that would be the best way to communicate the finish that we wanted.
Is that something that you can do and give to Nancy or the town manager before the BOT meeting?
I'll try.
That way it can be added to the recommendation.
I will try to meet with Tom before that date and discuss that.
We're gonna meet with Tom to try to make sure you type Becky in, because we'll need cost estimates, because we're trying to get on the thing on Tuesday.
I will try.
Yeah, and I'm going to follow up with the town manager after the meeting and let her know what our recommendation is. So I will make her aware that that's coming down the pipe. I couldn't hear what was happening in the back of the room, but
Yeah, it's a secret.
okay.
So you had a motion?
There is a motion on the table.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, Nancy, would you read through with
Sure.
the addition?
Sure. A motion to recommend to the board to add terracotta integral stain color with a broom finish for safety.
Do we need to add the possibility of changing the contour within that authority, a recommendation? No.
No, because we're not going to change the concrete pour. We're going to do the contouring visually with the gravel in phase 2, or the granite or the stone or whatever.
Oh, so you want to stay with the straight sidewalk and then contour with landscaping?
So
Yeah.
I think that's the only way to keep the project moving.
Did you have something to add to the movement?
I think broom finish as suggested
Okay,
with a sample coming.
per sample. Okay,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So let's then continue through the town manager's report. We've already talked about phase 2 of the Gazebo Lake project, and we've scheduled a work meeting for November 30th. So we'll continue working on that. Stilling Basin contractor is going to level out some of the space at the site that will be available. So it seems like the town manager is asking for a site visit with Ron. We did assign Ron to do the remaining walkthroughs of the project with the contractor. So I think we should just have the town manager reach out to him directly. And if he's not available, then we might ask Don.
Could you repeat that? I was a little unclear on the manager's asking for Ron to be the site.
Yeah, we as the PRT assigned Ron to basically meet with the contractor as the project goes on and finishes out, so that Ron can give us the basis of design as we start to redesign that park. Have him draw it up for us.
do a concept,
Yeah.
basically,
Or at least a site plan to get us started.
right?
Because I don't know how much area we have to work with until I see a site plan.
Well, and until it's finished also, I mean, what they have, in their plans might be a little bit different than what we get as a finished product too.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I want Ron to draw us up a site plan with actual conditions after when they're near enough to completion that we know exactly what that's going to be. So I think that's just continuing on the same path that we're on. The CPW grant, the wildlife grant that we got for the bear resistant trash containers. We know that that's a total grant of $56,500. We have identified that we would spend $18,000 at trailheads on bear-proof trash containers. And then there's some question here about really the big question becomes the commercial dumpster enclosure, where that goes and sort of what it's going to look like. And again, we don't have to decide this today, but if you are standing in front of the post office and looking to the left, there are 4 significant trees, unfortunately similar to the ones that we had to take down for the stilling basins. But they are, at best, 3 of them are completely desecrated by pine beetle and probably should be brought down. And the 4th one looks to me like it's probably not much better off. So we know it's a touchy subject to bring down these signature trees, but then we also know it's a town policy to take them down if they're infected. So we probably need to all look at those, make sure that we're on the same page, and make a recommendation about that. Maybe we can add that to our work session November 30th is to go over and talk about the potential there. I think the idea, the concept for this has sort of changed since the beginning, where there was going to be one big dumpster blind with a bunch of individual trash carts in there, which was going to increase the size of the dumpster blind. We found a gabled dumpster. So think about a roll-off construction dumpster with a gabled top that bears can't get into, and the business owners being able to share this single dumpster, having one dumpster blind enclosure, and then I keep proposing a recycling dumpster somewhere in that blind also. So when I was there last, the town manager, Mike Penman, as a contractor and as a property owner there, met with us and a guy from the trash service and talked about how all this might work. And it seems like we can have a much smaller footprint by having the single gabled roll-off dumpster, and then a spot for an additional dumpster or recycling dumpster. So I would like to maybe have Ron help draft out a quick little site plan and include that with our recommendation about this. So what's left then to decide is, okay, we've done the groundwork. We have an idea of how big this thing should be, but we have to decide, is it right to take down those trees? And what is this thing going to look like? So it'd be an ambitious thing to add to our November 30 meeting, but we get a lot done when we roll up our sleeves in person and do these work sessions. So I'd like to propose that we add it to our agenda that day and see how far we can get.
And I think seeing it physically, all being together, just like you were with Penman and the town manager and the trash person. I think if our committee can be there in person and see it together, that'll help a lot too. Putting that visual and just be part of when we're going around and looking at the parks and the assets and everything. So I think it integrates really well together.
Perfect. Then we're gonna do that then.
Let's do it.
Good idea. I agree.
Was there any, I have a question, was there any consideration of an odor problem that may produce being all in one place, all the commercial dumpsters?
The only time that we discussed odor was the frequency of the pickup. The trash company, the trash service doesn't own this Gable dumpster. The dumpster itself is an $8,000 expense. So the town would be purchasing that dumpster, and the trash service, being a partner with us, would then purchase an additional dumpster so that we could have a weekly swap, keeping the frequency up on how often they're picked up.
Oh,
Excellent.
yeah. Good plan.
Hey, Jesse, just so I'm on top of this, the 4 trees you're referring to are actually to the northeast of the post office along Maple Street or along Oak Street.
Jay, I don't know with my north and east when I'm in Green Mountain Falls. I know exactly where it is in Oklahoma.
Okay,
Jay, it's the 4 trees behind the post office.
that's what
Okay.
I was looking. Yeah, I'm playing computer games as we talk, so I was just looking at those.
Mhm.
Yep, I know the trees. Perfect. And that would be a good access point for the businesses.
So then the last thing on the town manager's report is the Ready Grant, which is finding a contract or getting a grant to have someone do an assessment on the pool.
So that's huge. And this is oak. How is that gonna lay this way or this way? This way.
Are you two chatting?
There's a-
Jesse,
Sorry. Sorry.
you're gonna give Don 2 demerits and make him stay after
Well,
class.
this is, the meeting's going too long. You know what happens?
I do. This is
Our attention span is gone.
-2. We're going to do a lot of voluntolding. So the last thing in her report is just communicating with us that she's applied for a grant to get an assessment on the pool. And if they don't receive that grant in December, then we will go to a more do-it-ourselves approach and get some contractors out to look at what's going on there.
And the current contract has been put on hold, correct? The contract with what were they called? The Maristar, what were they, honey? Not you. I'm sorry. I'm
She's looking at me, Jesse. Well, that's one for the recording, isn't it?
sorry, Mayor.
We are a close-knit group, you know.
Yeah. We are exploring the possibility of putting that contract on hold. I think that's probably the thing to
Okay.
state right now.
Exploring the possibility.
Excellent. So that is the conclusion of the town manager's report to us, which I appreciate her getting to us because it's always a lot of information pertaining to what we're doing.
Very true.
So I know it's been a long meeting. We've gotten through the agenda in a haphazard way, but we hit every point. And I'm really looking forward to our work session coming up here in a few weeks. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at 4:22 p.m.